Are you looking for a way to make co-parenting easier? Talking Parents can help you streamline your shared parenting responsibilities and minimize conflict by keeping all interactions organized and documented. With Talking Parents, you can stop worrying about the he said, she said, and focus on what matters most, your children. Download the app in the Apple or Google Play Store and start a 30-day free trial today. Hey folks, we are back with a really exciting topic. We're talking about visualizing, designing, and executing your new post-divorce life with Laurie Gerber. And there's so much heavy and difficult about navigating divorce, and yet Laurie and I certainly know the promise of what's available on the other side. And so today is a day for us to lighten up the mood and for you to begin envisioning your next best chapter. And so before we dive in, Laurie Gerber is an absolute powerhouse when it comes to life coaching. With over 18 years experience, she's helped individuals, couples, and groups design and live a life they love. And that's what I desire for each and every one of you. Laurie is the founder of Laurie Gerber Coaching Incorporated, and you can read more about her and find all of the ways you can contact her in the show notes. The other thing that's really interesting about Laurie is when she first entered life coaching, her coach had her write a list of all of her fears. And then, Laurie, how often do you
execute one of them per week?
One per week. So folks, if you've been struggling stepping through your comfort zone to the other side, this is something Laurie learned to be very familiar with, didn't you, Laurie?
Oh, true. It was such a brilliant first assignment because it freaked me out completely and opened me up completely and proved what I was capable of right at the top. And weirdly made the other things I was asked to do in regards to my relationships and my career
Easier. So this is such a fun little niche that you have. And I would love for you to kick us off. How do you invite somebody into the mental space of visualizing and designing their future life?
So good. The first assignment I ever got, written assignment, the first physical assignment was the fear thing, but the first written assignment I ever got, and the one I now still give all my clients, is to describe in words, in written words, what is a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10 for you in each area of life. And I insist you do each area of life: yourself, your relationship to yourself, your body, your health, your career, your money, your family, your home, your fun, your spirituality, all your love life, right? All of the areas, even if your love life is just with you right now, right? Like all of those areas are undeniable. And the act of trying to bring your subconscious truth about what you desire out of your face in words, or out of your pen or your typing fingers into words, is incredibly magical. And so I invite you to voice to text or write what's a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, not in some future fantasy, but a year from now. A year from now, what would you love to say is true about your life? That is how I invite people to begin to visualize. Don't worry, they don't get it right away. It's not an easy thing.
I love the shoot for the stars and begin to excavate. Like I always think that the dreams, that our desires are planted in our heart, like
Yes,
when we're born. And so it's kind of like life happens and you have this invitation to excavate and dust off and polish and shine and bring to the surface your 10 in every area. Love that.
yeah.
I would
In
imagine
there.
it's in there, right?
And
And I
people don't know I don't know, right? They go, I don't know what it is. I'm like, you do. There's some rubble to move, but you do know.
got to dig a little bit.
Yeah.
So the first thing I think of is I could imagine that a lot of resistance comes up for people when they start doing that.
You're not taught to think in dream language or to feel in dream language, right? Kids are allowed to do it. You get away with it till maybe you're about 12, 13, and then you got to get serious and do your
Grow
applications.
up.
Like grow up and get serious and make decisions that you're nowhere near being able to make and please people and try to please people. So we're just not taught it. So it is actually, it really is like learning a foreign language or having to sort of go back in your memory a little bit. For me, I didn't have a body dream. I was like, well, who cares? Like, who cares about my body? I'm a brain, right? I'm here to work. I'm here to think. I'm here to solve problems. I'm not here to feel good.
Right, right.
That's, I don't even understand that, right? Or look good. Not, I don't understand any of that. So I had to go back in time about 18, 20 years to when I did have a dream about that area. So there is resistance. And by the way, let me just say, I'm not saying that people need to be at a 10, but people have to program the GPS to a 10. And then if you're currently at a 3, I want to get you to 5, 6, 7 over the course of a year. I don't expect you to go from a 3 to a 10 in a year, though some people do. But the point is to call your shot on where you want the GPS to take you and then start moving towards it. Because as you move towards it, you feel better immediately.
Absolutely. Yeah, I wrote this article once about playing with possibility. And as you're talking, I'm thinking we need to go back to being kids where it's like, I want to be an astronaut or I want to be a brain surgeon or whatever I want to
Right.
be. And you're saying, well, what do you want to be in every area of your life?
And I was so perverted by society and culture about my body, about what my body was for, what it should be, what its value was, how it should look, and all of that. I had to go back to when I was 11, when I wasn't susceptible to that, before I got hurt, my feelings hurt by society and culture and ballet teachers and all of that. And I wanted to be a dancer. I wanted to have that open chested, open hearted, graceful, flowy, able to move and express myself through movement. And let me just tell you, as a 30 something who never left my house practically with 2 young children, no exercise routine, carbs and sugar at every meal, fluorescent lights over, like, that was so far from my reality, but it still was my actual dream from back when I was 11 years old.
Okay, so just we're all on the edge of our seat now. What have you done in terms of dance?
Well, I did go back to dancing. I did go back to dancing. I mean, what it started as just losing the weight I didn't need, breaking my addiction to sugar, learning how to eat healthy, how to enjoy eating healthy, like just wanting to have sex again, all of the things that your body is capable of if you try, right? If you focus on it, which also brought up a lot of fear, by the way, right? That went very well with my jumping out of an airplane. Oh, I'm afraid to actually eat healthfully. I'm afraid of how it's going to feel if I have to be intimate with my husband again. I'm afraid of how I'm going to feel if I have to be present to my feelings, right? So there was a lot of fear. But eventually I did go back to exercising, and then I took a dance class, and then I took a lot of dance classes, and then I eventually also performed in front of the class, something my teacher had choreographed for me to dance. And so I am a dancer, right? I am a dancer. I know myself as a dancer. But I was scarred when I was a kid, so I gave it up and I was mad about it, but I brought it back in my own style.
Love that. So for all you folks who've been listening to me, we're recording this on September 25th, and it is my birthday. And I will out myself, it is my 63rd birthday. And I was looking at Facebook yesterday or this morning, and a colleague of mine was showing her Salsa Sunday dance class. And my entire spirit jumped. And I was like, I have to take a dance class. And it's just one of those
What
things
a
that's
coincidence.
been on my bucket list. And it's so funny because it sits there. It's got a lot of dust on it. It probably needs some excavation. But this is my year. I'm actually reading, if you've ever read The Big Leap, and I'm doing The Big Leap year, which is all about leaping into your 10 in every area. And so I was like, oh, wow, I need to work on my play curriculum and
Yeah,
those
exactly.
kinds of things. And so I want to ask you something. Many of the people listening they're in the thick of it. They're either in the thick of a very difficult decision to divorce, a very difficult negotiation with a difficult individual, or post divorce with kids and dealing with struggling. And I would love if you could guide a person in that situation who's probably like, I don't have the time, I don't have the energy, I can't even imagine that. Can we help guide them into play and considering these things.
Yeah, I would say, and I work with a lot of women in that exact time frame of life. It's a beautiful time frame. It's a real metamorphosis. It's a lot like menopause, where you're like, I'm done with this shit. Like,
Come in as a caterpillar and fly out as a
yeah,
butterfly.
but it is a portal. It's a crucible, I think is an even better word for it. So I think the first thing I would suggest, I always suggest dreaming and dreaming out loud and in writing, of course, and then being honest. If that's a 10, where am I now? Right? Because you want to, if you really are at a 3, which you might be, if you're scared to get a divorce, if you're scared to ask for a divorce, if you just asked for a divorce and now you're freaking out, if you are in the middle of hard negotiations, you might be at a 3, honestly, right? And so you want to be appropriate and go, at the end of a year, I might be at a 6, right? A 6, I might feel decent. I might get up in the morning and think about things other than this. I might sleep well at night. I might hold my kid's hand and go, we're going to be okay. And so I would suggest starting to just dream for how you want to feel about this situation in a year and
Mm,
literally act it out in your mind. Literally, this has been proven time and time again to work. Whatever you can grasp about how it's going to look when it's over and better, hang on to that. And I am here to tell you that, and I think you can probably back me up here. I've worked with hundreds of women. Who you are after is not who you were before, and it is better. It's better. It's miraculously better. You have no idea. You can't know yet, so you're just gonna have to trust me and the other women who have done it already. It is better. Don't give up. Hold on and keep envisioning the best you can possibly muster to believe is going to happen, even if that's imagining holding your kid's hand or having a birthday and blowing out candles and going, I did it. I
mm.
made it. What I get goosebumps just thinking about it. Whatever that picture is for you, find that picture and repeat it over and over again to replace the horror stories you want to be playing in your mind.
Right, because that's what we do when we're just unconscious about it. We what if nightmares. We never what if dreams. And so this is a very conscious decision to pivot from that fear voice to maybe that intuitive voice of what is possible.
Right. It'll feel weird. It will feel weird, but that's a good sign if it feels weird. It means you're changing your neural pathways and you're creating possibility, as you put it.
Yeah, and is there something that you share about the impact of focused mental positive energy?
Oh my gosh, it's everything. I practice all day, every day. I'm obsessed. I'm a fanatic about controlling my mental energy. I can give you sort of like beginner, intermediate, and advanced. But I would say beginner is just decide what you're going to think first thing in the morning. So I have a little game with myself that I play, which is how quickly can I remember that I'm here for world peace in the morning? Like, how quickly can I remember who I am and why I'm here? That's a fun little game I play with myself that anyone can play. Very simple, very easy. Just play the game. How soon can I remember I'm a child of God, or I'm infinitely possible, or you pick your mantra, right? What I'm strong, I'm powerful, I get through things, I do hard things, I'm a girl boss, whatever you like. Pick an I am mantra and see how quick you can get to it in the day. And notice if you forget and you never get to it, that means you're consuming approximately 50,000 negative thoughts a day. If you're a normal average human, they say we have 12 to 60,000 thoughts a day, of which I believe it's 80% are negative, which only leaves about 20% for neutral and positive. And 85% are repetitive, right? So we're just having the same negative thoughts over and over again all day. So if you never remember who you are all day, you're normal. It means you're having, 12 to 50,000 negative thoughts that day. But if
That's
you can remember just once, if you can just remember one time, no, that's not who I am. That one time cancels out at least 10, 20,000 of the negatives because it's so much more powerful.
absolutely. I was at a business conference, I think like 2 weeks ago, and the whole bunch of us, a couple hundred, were encouraged to start our day with the Maui habit, which is when you sit up in bed, as your feet touch the ground, you say it's going to be a great day. And if you just have a hellacious day ahead of you, you add the word somehow to the end of it. It's
Right.
going to be a great day somehow.
You and I are very cosmically synced here.
And I tell you, I've been doing this for the last 2 days. I don't always remember when my feet touch the ground, but certainly by the time I put on the coffee pot, I've remembered and I've said it.
just so you know, my alarm, you can name your alarms on your iPhone. My alarm says greet the gorgeous day.
Oh, I love
My
that.
calendar reminds me, and I
Okay.
have daily practices throughout the day. You can write it on your coffee cup, your water cup. I am magic. Yep,
You,
I'll link to that. Right,
you,
there's so many tricks and ways you can become obsessed with managing your mind, which really, really works.
it's, I feel like if we did nothing but learn how to manage our minds and go from the tail wagging the dog to the dog wagging the tail, we would all be so much better off. And for those of you who listen and think to whatever podcast you listen to that, wow, those people have their shit together. All of us are just figuring this out one day at a time, doing our best. And many, many of the people who are out there trying to heal the world one person at a time are doing so because of their own pain and brokenness that they came from. And so we're really all in this together.
True.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you looking for a way to make co parenting easier? Talking Parents can help you streamline your shared parenting responsibilities and minimize conflict by keeping all interactions organized and documented. With Talking Parents, you can stop worrying about the he said, she said, and focus on what matters most, your children. Download the app in the Apple or Google Play Store and start a 30-day free trial today. Your kids may not be the only ones taking tests this year. SoberLink is the #1 alcohol monitoring device on the market for parents who need to prove their sobriety. Here's how it works. Your co-parent will test at scheduled times each day. Built-in facial recognition confirms their identity. Tamper sensors flag any attempts to cheat. And results get sent instantly to your phone. So you know your kids are with a sober parent, whether it's during school nights or weekends away. Set your family up for success this school year. Visit soberlink.com/JBD to learn more and get $50 off your device. Divorce feels like an overwhelming perfect storm as you navigate pain, fear, and confusion while struggling with unfamiliar legal procedures and the pressure to make complex decisions that will impact the rest of your life. Our free Rapid Relief Call provides the clarity and confidence you're yearning for. Visit rapidreliefcall.com for support and guidance today. Okay, so we're working on our mindset, we're acting, we're playing like kids and dreaming and visioning. What comes next?
Getting very specific about your brand of excuses.
Oh,
Right. What happens once you start to tap into that dream, right? When I tapped into that dream of being a graceful, light dancer who could fly through the air, I was very overweight. I was addicted to sugar. I wasn't moving my body. I was obsessed with work. And when I wasn't working, I was having my tits sucked off by babies. Like it was nowhere near that dream. So the first thing that came to mind was not how I was going to get the dream. The first thing that came to mind was all my excuses for why I wasn't going to get there.
yeah,
And
but
that's pretty normal.
yeah,
But yeah, and they usually come in 3 flavors that we say in the Handel method, which is the method I'm trained in, is they come in chicken flavor, brat flavor, and weather reporter flavor. So the chicken is the voice of fear. Like, well, what if I do get the body I love? Then I'm going to have to start having sex again. Or what if I do stop eating sugar? I might have feelings. The brat, I want to eat what the heck I want to eat. It tastes good. Back off me. I like donuts. And the weather reporter, which is this is just how I am. This is how I was raised to eat. This is how my family's bodies look. This is how we are. And I have kids and a husband and a house and a business and blah, 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 blah. Like it's very stormy over here. Do not tell me I can have a great life. So I think you have to start to, again, with the mental management comes, you have to listen to the voice in your head and you have to hear, is it rooting for the dream or is it rooting for the status quo? Usually it's rooting for the status quo, but can you hear that it's being a brat, a chicken, or a weather reporter? Like you have nothing to do with the results. That's your key to getting your power back and going, I'm the author, not the weather reporter. It's not happening to me. I am making choices and they are having impacts, period.
so stepping into your power is what I'm hearing. That next step is really listening to all of those internal fear objections or other objections and then doing it anyway.
Yeah. Just calling BS on it. Now, it was true that I had a very busy life, right? It wasn't a lie. It was just that's not the reason that was really stopping me. The reason that was really stopping me was fear and brattiness. And my dream became louder and more interesting to me than the fear and the brattiness.
Oh, it's
The,
interesting.
the fear and the frattiness. The fear and the brattiness.
I was just on the phone with an individual who's considering divorce, and that was exactly our conversation. That there's our excuses, but then there's like, are we courageous enough to pull back the cover and look at what the real root cause is? Because the causal point of you not doing what you wish you could do is never your circumstances or your spouse or your ex.
Oh my gosh. You and I are very in sync. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's never as hard as you think it's going to be. Because I will say I quit sugar, which they say is as hard as quitting heroin. And there really were 2 weeks when I was very distraught about it, but it was only 2 weeks. It wasn't forever.
Yeah.
And the number of years I've had now free of that addiction, or I should say recovered from that addiction, because it could get me anytime,
Well, tell
is
us how many years?
I'm in control of my sugar. I never went back. I still have sugar now in moderation in my design. I design how I enjoy sugar to be commensurate with my dreams. Okay, versus willy-nilly, which is what I did before. But for a time I had no sugar because I needed to get it. I needed to, get the monkey off my back and find out what was underneath of it, right? So, but why was I telling you this? There was a reason. Oh, just that I felt better very quickly. It didn't take years and years and years. I felt better very quickly. The positive feedback loop started very quickly. And this is what I want to tell people going through the hard part of divorce. It's like labor. It doesn't last forever. It really does stop. And in those 2 weeks that I was detoxing sugar, it was awful. And I thought it would never end. And that's a lie. That's not true. That's the rat and the chicken talking. And it's the same if you're going through that hard moment of your divorce.
And I'll just caveat that with, while labor might last 36 hours, we understand that a divorce can last years. And yet, my favorite mantra, mine was 3.5 years. And I think every day of those 3.5 years, about 100 times, I said, this too shall pass. This too shall. I didn't believe it. So I just kept saying it. But one never stays pregnant forever, and one never stays in the divorce process forever, although it certainly can feel that way sometimes. And so let's help our listeners that they're visioning, they're looking at their BS, right? Like, what's really going on? What is the root? What is your fear voice saying? I think is one way of saying it. And then once people start addressing that, can you just share a little bit more of your process going forward?
Yeah, this is to bring it all full circle. There's your BS, which is the chicken, the brat, and the weather reporter. And then there's the truth, which is I'm afraid to do this or I'm unwilling to do this. That would make it better, right? I'm unwilling to make that call. I'm unwilling to do the financial analysis. I'm unwilling to tell my kids. I'm unwilling to tell my family. I'm unwilling to tell my neighbors because I'm either too scared or I'm a brat, right? And then there's the okay, now we make a promise to do it with a buy when and a consequence if you don't, because the current consequence is becoming untenable. The current consequence of the status quo, in my case, I had a near divorce experience because I kept misbehaving in my marriage to the point where it became untenable for my husband. And he said, if you don't change, I'm going to divorce you. And I was like, oh, consequences. Let me deal with this. Okay. Same thing with my body. I was miserable. I was ruining my marriage. I wasn't having sex. I was not happy. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't being a good parent. Things were falling apart in the slow way that they do. And I was not connecting my choices to those consequences. So when I created a new eating plan, which was fruits, vegetables, and protein essentially at the time, I had consequences if I did not keep that. Same thing. If I interrupted my husband while he was speaking, I had a consequence. To this day, I still have to do one of his chores if I interrupt. Decades later, I still need that promise and consequence because I like interrupting. And frankly, I get away with it with my girlfriends. Promise and a consequence. A promise is not an intention. It's not a goal. It's not a good idea. I had plenty of those before coaching. Now it is a promise. In other words, I give my word to this. Like I say, I'm going to pick my kid up from school. So I gave my word I would eat this way. If I didn't eat that way, I would lose my chocolate protein bar that I got every day. That was my one treat. I used to cut it up into little pieces. That was like my dessert now. And I would lose that the next day if I didn't stick to the plan. And I did not want to lose that. So I stuck to my plan.
So
And
that,
yeah,
that's
similarly changing my behavior with my husband.
so that's really interesting because my question was going to be, since we abandon ourselves so much quicker than we abandon anyone else, how do you make this happen? And you're saying you give yourself a consequence. So you have to be willing, you have to make the commitment,
Right.
and then you actually have to, and this is why you need a coach, you have to actually stand by the consequence.
It's very helpful to have accountability, as I'm sure you know, which is probably the reason why people work with people like us, is because I mean, I just used to joke about how I would tell myself how much ice cream I was going to eat, and then 0% of the time would I eat the amount I told myself I would eat. But if I told my coach, I would stick to it because, or if I, even if I was eating in front of someone else, it would be different than what I would do privately because we don't keep promises to ourselves. There's not really a strong incentive. So the accountability matters. It can be a coach, it can be a buddy. It doesn't have to be a coach if you can't afford a coach, but it needs to be somebody that will hold you to account and cares about your dream more than your BS. That's the requirement.
Yeah, no, no, I love that. So let's keep going. We vision, we take a look at what's behind the BS. We're willing, we commit, we have a consequence. What comes next?
Comes next. Assess. Okay, so in the state of dream consciousness, I want to be a dancer. I want to feel graceful. I want to feel light. I want to fly through the air. You come up with your best guess as to what would get me there. Like, what are the first steps that would get me there? So, for your clients, maybe it's I'm going to prepare what I'm going to say, or maybe it's I'm going to get my finances in order, or maybe it's I'm going to find the lawyer or whatever
Or
it is.
we can even talk about definitely bring them post-divorce.
Right.
Let's
Or you're like, I'm going to get on a dating site in 2 months or whatever it is. Or I'm going to ask my neighbor out, or I'm going to just get some nice pictures taken of myself.
join Meetup and just join a new circle.
Go to a meetup, learn to flirt. The list goes on and on. In the state of your dream consciousness, you come up with your best guess at what the plan is. And then you make that a promise to someone else. Because remember, we keep the promises to other people, not ourselves, with an artificial immediate consequence. If I don't do that, I'll give my kid $100. If I don't do that, I'll wear my shirt inside out tomorrow. If I don't do that, I won't have my coffee till I do. If I don't do that, I'll take Instagram off my phone for a day, whatever. You come up with a stupid, silly, but annoying consequence. You tell your buddy, and then you set up an accountability structure with your buddy or your coach to account for that. Then you can assess. You've kept your promise for a few months. Did it move you closer to your dream? Did you start at a 3 and now you're a 5? Did you start at a 5 and now you're a 7? Okay, great. Keep going. The promise is working. It's getting you to your dream. If it's not working, if you're still stuck at a 3, there's a couple things that might be wrong. So you go back and assess. Is the dream really my dream? Is it locked into my heart? Do I really mean it? Is that still true for me that that's my dream? Number one. Number two, is the promise adequate to get me there? Some people are like, I want to be in the best shape of my life, and their promise is drink 8 glasses of water. That's not going to get you there. It's a nice start. That's fine to build the muscle, but that's not going to get you there. So is the promise going to get you there? And then did you pay your consequence? Because if you didn't pay your consequence, then the whole thing is moot, right? You're corrupting the game. So if you didn't pay your consequence, start over and this time keep your consequence and don't count any past results because you didn't play the game. If you did keep your consequence and you keep breaking the promise, you don't have the right consequence. So you can assess the consequence, you can assess the promise, and then you can assess the dream on an ongoing basis. And as soon as something starts to work really well, don't do the rookie mistake of stopping the promise. Rookie mistake. Now you upgrade the promise to the next thing you want to do, or the even more interesting thing, right? I started by just doing fruits, vegetables, protein, and a protein bar. Then it was like, oh, maybe I should learn to cook and make vegetables taste good, right? Like it became a new, it
Gotcha.
kept evolving, right, as I got closer to my dream.
So for those of us who are perfectionists,
Hmm.
who might go, oh, she listed 12 things. I'll figure out my 10 in all 12 categories and go for it.
Yeah.
What do you recommend in terms of
Sorry.
Don't do that. So do you just do one? Do you pick three? Like what is the sweet spot that you found with your
Oh,
client?
yeah. If you're listening to this podcast and you want to start on your own, you do one dream, one list of excuses, one promise, one consequence, one buddy. If all the support you're going to get is this podcast, that's what I would recommend. When I coach clients, we work on 3 to 5 areas at a time. So we assess all 12 at the top because we want to work on the ones that will domino affect the others. So I
Oh,
don't, it's not like it could be any 3. It needs to be the right 3, the 3 that are hurting the most usually.
okay.
And so you would pick 3 to 5 in a given year and focus on those. And you would have 2 to 3 promises and consequences in 3 to 5 areas. So that's how we keep it contained. Of course, that trickles down to everything else. If you love keeping promises, you could have more. If you hate them, you could have less. But that's how I help a perfectionist or overdoer not do their thing to this.
Okay, Laurie, we need a story. Give me a case study.
You don't like mine? You want someone else's?
Change the name. I think the
You
more
want, well, let me, uh, would it be helpful to give you an example of a divorce? A
I-
divorce?
it perhaps I'll leave that up to you. I just think that connecting concepts to
Okay.
someone's experience besides yours.
Okay. So
Is a good one.
we'll call her Christine. Okay. So Christine came to me with a very common problem. I don't want to get divorced while my kids are still in the house. We are good friends. We haven't had sex in years. There's no chemistry, but divorce sounds really complicated and hard, and I don't want to do this to my kids. Right. And so we created a dream, and the dream was to feel fully self-actualized and happy and free in her life and to have real love in her life, like the kind that satisfies the head, the heart, and the hoo-ha. Right. So right now her marriage made sense for her life of raising children, but she wanted more than just raising children. She wanted to have a life.
Yep.
So her marriage was not satisfying her heart. She was not equally met emotionally, and she certainly wasn't having any sex. That was the dream. I think I gave you a good sense of what the excuses were. Can't do it to the kids. It's the most popular, as if we're like really helping our children by demonstrating a terrible marriage. Okay. Sorry if that sounds mean. So those were her excuses. She was embarrassed to tell the community she didn't want to go through the difficulty of a divorce, and she mostly thought she was saving her kids by staying together. Enough shitty things happened, right? Enough weather happened in her life that it became untenable, similar to my experience with my husband when I wouldn't stop interrupting him. It became untenable. And she started to see other people divorce and live to tell the tale. She started to see the impact on her kids. She started to see it all. And so she decided, I'm going to do this. And we literally had to make little baby promises all along the way, like, I'll talk to the lawyer. I'll tell him what I think is wrong. I'll warn him that this is what I'm thinking. I'll itemize our expenses. It was literally one thing after another, as I'm sure you know even better what the list of things to do is, but one thing after another that required a promise and a consequence. No coffee until you do it, or whatever, until step by step by step, she's now finally getting her divorce. You can't even imagine how happy it's more than happy. It's like free and self-actualized. It's the dream, right? It's like she's in her body, she's in her heart, she's in her soul, she's present for her kids now, not mad at her kids because how do you not resent your kids if they're the reason you're staying in a loveless marriage? It affects the kids awfully. So now she doesn't have to be mad at her kids for making her stay. She doesn't even have to be mad at her ex. And he did a lot of things to make her mad, but it's not her problem now.
Right.
So she doesn't have to be mad at him. She doesn't have to be mad at herself. She doesn't have to be mad at her kids. And she can start the process of healing and figuring out what it is she really wants and deserves in her life. And then, of course, meanwhile, it pulled up everything about her family of origin, right? So she got to do all that healing work. She got to work on her body. She was going through menopause at the same time as we often do during a divorce. So she got to work on her health and well-being. So it was a very happy ending. And I stopped coaching her a long time ago, but I still get every quarter or so, I'll get a voice note that's just, let me tell you what happened now. Let me tell you how we did a joint vacation, a joint holiday. Let me tell you how the kids are doing, how I'm doing. So I get to watch it continue to
Love that.
in the direction of her dream. Is that what you meant by an example?
Yeah, I think that just to make it tangible.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. And so what are, besides the internal barriers, are there any other pitfalls that people fall into when doing this work?
Yeah. The main one I want to point to is what you let into your consciousness from external. So it's bad enough that we have the 60,000 negative internal things, but we expose ourselves. And so all day long, we're exposing ourselves. I was thinking today that a good analogy is like if they told you there was poison in your water, would you keep drinking it? Or would you be like, I'll go get bottled water, right? I think I'll just not right now, right? Like not drink the water from the faucet. You poison yourself by who you listen to and who you surround yourself. And I work with women on dating. That's my specialty. So all day women are just dumping the garbage they hear. The dating sites are all scams. Men all just want younger and they want to fuck. There's no good ones in my neighborhood. Blah 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 blah. Right? Like there's so many beautiful women. There's no good men. Just on and on with the negative content coming at you from Instagram, social media in general, the news, the culture, and mostly your friends and your family. So if you are letting that stuff in, I'm sorry, but it is toxifying you and it does matter. And you are allowed to say no to it. Can you say it nicely? Yes, I recommend you say it nicely to the people you love, but it will corrupt you. It will corrupt you, and you will not get out as fast if you let people feed you negativity, whether it's about your divorce, your ex, your kids, your future, dating, any of it.
It's such a good point. And I have one of my colleagues talks about putting herself in a bubble,
Exactly.
which I always talk about like a Star Trek force field. So hers is a little bit more gentle.
Yes.
She's in a bubble. But whatever metaphor works for you, that ability to, if we think about this, what comes to mind for me is number one, my awareness of who are the healthy people and who are the unhealthy people. And some of the unhealthy people may be loved ones that I love, but then I get to be very discerning about when I engage with them. So if I'm doing work like you're talking about, I might think, okay, well, I've got my coach, Laurie, but who's my A team? And who's my proceed with caution
Exactly.
group, right? And
Here, then
right,
they get a different
yeah.
approach.
And it's because, and I think like for my audience, the first thing would be like, well, the people pleasers, right? I don't want to be rude. It doesn't seem nice to not hear and listen and engage, right? And that there's that whole, I'll abandon myself for their needs for just this moment. But the ripple effect is so powerful. And so when we consciously discern and primarily just let in positive, can you finish the sentence?
You'll feel much better. And let me say, let me just give you a script, right? If you're listening and you're a people pleaser and you know it's going to be hard for you to say it, this is the script. I'm working on this thing for myself. It's not going great. I'm really struggling to stay positive and believe in the future turning out for me in XYZ area. Would you mind supporting me by just giving me affirming messages and thoughts about that and try to avoid giving me any horror stories or negativity? That would really make a difference for me. Right. So that is like such a grace and wisdom sandwich. It's silly, right? That is so kind, it's self-reflective, it's not blaming, it's not criticizing, it's not dictatorial. It's just, I need your partnership on this. I'm struggling. I could use the help. Anybody who loves you will say yes to that and get it and not even be defensive. If it's somebody you have a tricky relationship, it may need more zhuzhing than that. But most people should be able to feel compassion for that and appreciate your vulnerability versus being like, don't do that or don't say it. There's bad ways and good ways to communicate your quote unquote
No, that was beautiful. That
goods
was
and
beautiful. And if you have someone that you say that to and they can't receive it, that's not about you. That's about them. And you categorize them in a way that you engage with them. I always tell my clients, for people like that, you need to be at full capacity when you engage with them, right? And so when you're in 12-step program, there's an acronym HALT that stands for hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or my definition, out of capacity. And when you are those things,
Right.
you do not want the loved ones who are negative nillies or glass half empty people.
We're
You
gonna
don't,
take from an empty tank.
yeah, you don't
Well,
need them pouring that into you.
here's another fun little turn of phrase that I'm sure you'll love, which is you cannot rob Peter to pay Paul indefinitely. Eventually, Peter gets mad and does something about it. And in the case of a people pleaser, you're Peter. Okay, so you keep robbing yourself to pay Paul.
Yeah.
Peter's getting pissed under there. Peter's having it up to here. Peter's getting an ulcer. Peter's getting cancer. Peter's getting exhausted, chronic fatigue, autoimmune, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't turn out. It's a bad plan. It might be a good short-term plan. You stay up late, help your kid with the school project, they get an A. Once might be okay, but as soon as you start robbing Peter over time or more than once, and you're Peter, just be ready for the great recalibration because it will be.
There's going to be bitterness, resentment, and you're living the life of a martyr, and it just doesn't serve you or anyone else around you. So we've walked through, are there any other pieces that we didn't touch on? Did we walk through all of them?
We did. We walked through
Yeah.
them.
So can you share, this has been fabulous. I love what you do. I think that it's all types of fun and lightness, which is not exactly what I do. Tell our audience how that works. Do you have a group? Do you do individuals? What are if they were interested in diving into this or even putting this on their bucket list for when they're ready?
Yeah.
How do you work?
Okay. I do private coaching and I do group coaching. And I do lots of things for free. So I have endless amount of content for free
You
on
have a
my.
gift. I know you have a gift for
I
us.
have gifts, I have free things. I am at lauriegerber.com and you can check that out. The blog has more than you could read in years. So if you are not someone who's going to engage in a paid product, you should follow me on social media. You should read all my stuff. If you're interested in dating, that's what I'm focused on right now. So I have so much juicy stuff there. But if you're not interested in dating and you just like this style of life coaching, check out my private coaching page and go back further into my history, right? Google me. Like you'll see I've been talking about every subject for 20 years. If dating's not where you're at right now, you can still find great content on everything else. If dating is where you're at, I have a digital program that is so inexpensive, so affordable, so beautiful, so complete. And it comes with group coaching. But what I would say is if that's of interest to you, hit the free webinar button and just watch me for 90 minutes talk about it and get a flavor and get some inspiration from that. And then you'll know, oh, I'm ready to dive into this, or oh no, I'm on the bench. Let me just keep working on myself.
Perfect.
So I would say everybody should go to the free webinar if dating is anywhere on your horizon, anywhere, even if it's a distant dream or like you just had a bad day yesterday. I don't care. Watch the free webinar. And then depending on what's of interest, you can find it all on my website.
I think I'm going to have to watch your free webinar. Now, we have our audience is both men and women. Do you only work with women?
I work with all genders. The
Okay.
webinar in particular is geared towards women, though you're not going to get kicked out if you sneak in as a man. You will notice I am speaking to women. Don't be offended. The material's pretty darn helpful for any gender.
Okay.
But the group is women. The group coaching is women only. That is the caveat I'll make. My regular coaching, all genders, and my content really is pretty applicable across genders.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. It was so fun.
The show notes has every one of Laurie's social media links, a link to the free gift, a link to her website, and a little bit more in the notes. And so I want to thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your just lightness and enthusiasm and play. And I really encourage each of you tuning in to check out the show notes, check out Laurie's page, invite yourself into your next chapter, no matter where you are, and begin considering the lightness of being that can come with the next chapter of life, because that's what we wish for each and every one of you. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back again real soon. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Journey Beyond Divorce podcast. I hope you found guidance and encouragement to help you along your journey. If you like my podcast, please take a minute to subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. You can also visit us at jbddivorcesupport.com, where our team of coaches support both men and women through our one-on-one coaching, group programs, online courses, and free resources. Stay tuned for our next episode, and I'll talk to you soon.